Vestal virgins. The untold story of punishment in ancient Rome will shock you to the core. She was only a child no older than 10 when the Pontifex Maximus pointed to her in the crowd and declared her the next Vestal Virgin. From that moment, her life was no longer her own, chosen not for power, wealth, or ambition, but for purity and fate. She stepped into a role that would bind her to Rome more intimately than any emperor or senator ever could. What compelled the Romans to hand over their daughters to a life of sacred imprisonment? The role of the Vestal Virgin, the selection of a Vestal Virgin known as Virgo Vestalis, was a solemn and chilling ceremony. Candidates had to be between 6 and 10 years old, with both parents alive, Roman citizens, and free from disgrace. To be chosen was not an honor universally welcomed. Many families wept, not with pride, but with dread. Once chosen, the girl was led away in silence, crossing the Sacravia for the last time as a child of Rome. From now on, she belonged to the goddess Vesta. Biographer Plutarch in Life of Numa describes how King Numa Pompilius established the Vestals, entrusting them with the sacred fire. The vow of chastity, once chosen, there was no return, not to her home, not to her name, and most painfully, not to the life she once knew. To serve Vesta was to be transformed into an icon, a symbol of Rome's virtue. But beneath the surface of reverence lay a darker truth. The city would worship her. Until she made a single mistake, the vow of chastity taken before the goddess Vesta was irrevocable. For 30 years, a Vestal was forbidden to marry or touch any man. This wasn't merely religious doctrine, it was a matter of state security. Harsh justice. She was sacred, yet never safe. The Vestal Virgin, clothed in ceremonial white, lived under the ever-present weight of Roman law, unforgiving and absolute. Revered in public, but scrutinized in private, her sanctity was protected through methods more brutal than divine. What happened when even the most revered women in Rome made a mistake? The Vestals were bound to 3 core laws: perpetual virginity, unswerving obedience, and strict guardianship of the sacred fire. Violate any of these, and the consequences were swift and merciless. The use of torture, this was not symbolic punishment. It was a brutal, humiliating ritual carried out in darkness, often at night, to shield the sacred woman from the public gaze even as she suffered. Ancient sources confirm that when the sacred fire was extinguished, the Vestals were sometimes beaten with rods, always in the dark. Beyond physical punishment, psychological isolation was constant. For 30 years, a Vestal remained celibate, confined within the atrium Vesta, her interactions closely monitored. The slightest rumor of impropriety could trigger a full investigation by the College of Pontiffs. Burial alive. When a Vestal Virgin was believed to have broken her vow of chastity, Rome's justice turned silent, solemn, and utterly merciless. The punishment was so horrifying in its calm ritualism that no blood was shed, yet a life was extinguished all the same. The offense was incestum, the defilement of Vesta's purity. If a Vestal Virgin was found guilty, the punishment was not execution by blade, but a ritual entombment alive. This bloodless execution was reserved only for Rome's most revered women. The final ritual, once judged guilty, their fates were sealed. The condemned Vestal was led through the Roman Forum in a solemn procession, shrouded in white, barefoot, and veiled like a bride being walked to her wedding. But this was no marriage, this was her funeral. The procession stopped at the Campus Celeratus, the field of the wicked. There, a chamber was prepared, dug into the earth, with minimal sustenance: a bed, a lamp, bread, and water, symbols of minimal life. The legacy of the Vestal Virgins. The fate of Rome's Vestal Virgins reveals a civilization willing to sanctify innocence while punishing imperfection with merciless precision. Revered as divine symbols, yet cast aside when accused, these women stood at the crossroads of religion, law, and power, buried not just beneath earth, but beneath the weight of empire. In the shadow of such rituals, we must ask, What does a society lose when it sacrifices humanity for purity? Comment below with your thoughts. As Thucydides observed, the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must. Let us weigh this lesson well.